This New Mexico governor who is very upset because there's been a rash of shootings in New Mexico. I get it. It upsets all of us, and including one involving an 11-year-old boy who appears to have been killed during the midst of some sort of, I don't know if it was gang violence, but it was a road rage incident where because none of the news reports is talking about what happened. It was driving me nuts as a mother. 11-year-old boy, his family was leaving a baseball stadium after a game, road rage incident. I was certainly not suggesting he was in a gang. I'm like wondering who unleashed this hell on him. Were they in a gang, or what would they do? Because they made the car in which the child was riding made a U-turn in front of the suspect's vehicle. And then that suspect got out and fired 17 shots at the family's car. I mean, that's just absolute lunacy. The boy was killed, and there hasn't yet been an arrest. Absolutely awful. It's not the only incident in New Mexico. But this Democratic governor, as horrified as she was, I would submit had absolutely no right to do what she did, which was essentially to suspend the U.S. Constitution, including the Second Amendment, because she says it's an emergency and she really, really doesn't want the guns in New Mexico, concealed carry or open carry. It's any gun unless you're a law enforcement officer or security officer. So people who are legitimate gun owners and have licenses to carry guns in New Mexico are now under her emergency order no longer allowed to carry them. Inside their cars, inside their, pants, inside their homes, potentially. Here's how she put it when she was being pressed by a reporter on whether this was okay to do.
You took an oath to the Constitution. Isn't it unconstitutional to say you cannot exercise your carry license?
With one exception, and that is if there's an emergency, and I've declared an emergency for a temporary amount of time, I can invoke additional powers. No constitutional right, in my view, including my oath, is intended to be absolute. There are restrictions on free speech. There are restrictions on my freedoms.
So just two things there, Alan, whether she has the right to do this because, no constitutional right is absolute. And the second admission that she doesn't see her oath of office as absolute.
Well, obviously, she is doing something that many people will approve of. If I were at the Constitutional Convention or the Bill of Rights Convention, I would not have voted for the Second Amendment. I'm not in favor of there being a constitutional right to bear arms. We're one of the very few countries in the world that have that, but it's in the Constitution. And you can't suspend the First Amendment or the Second Amendment because of emergencies. We tried to do that in the past during the Second World War. They suspended the right of Japanese Americans to live on the West Coast and put them in detention centers. That has come to be understood as one of the worst Supreme Court decisions ever. The Constitution is designed for emergency times, for difficult times. And as much as I don't myself like the right to bear arms, I completely support the Constitution as written and would very firmly argue that she has no right to suspend it. She has the right to seek a constitutional amendment. You can interpret the Second Amendment, and after all, it does say it starts with a statement about the need for militias, well-regulated militias. You can make the argument that guns can be well-regulated under the Second Amendment. That argument is made in the Supreme Court, but you cannot simply suspend completely the right any more than you could suspend the right of freedom of speech. She's right that freedom of speech is not absolute, but no governor can say there's an emergency. We now suspend all of free speech rights. We close newspapers. We close the media. That's what they do in repressive regimes. So if you suspend the Second Amendment today, you then have the power to suspend the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, and the Fifth Amendment. And this was all part of the same thing. This was part of the effort to try to use the Constitution in a manipulative way to get your policy results you want, whether it's to get guns off the street, which is desirable, whether it's to stop Donald Trump from running, which many people would find desirable, whether it's detaining 110,000 American citizens of Japanese origin. in detention centers. None of them are permissible under the Constitution. Constitution was designed for dangerous times. That's why it's lasted longer than any constitution in the history of the world. And it's under attack largely from the left today. I grew up during McCarthyism, when it was under attack by the right. That's why I'm writing a new book actually called The New McCarthyism, why the woke version is even more dangerous than the original version, because it represents the future. The people who are calling for these suspensions of the Constitution are the young people who will become our leaders in the next 10, 20, 30 years. That's why it's so dangerous.
I always wanted to grow my own vegetable garden, and now I have a Lomi, and it's changed the way I think about food waste. Lomi transforms my garbage into gold at the press of a button. It's fun. Lomi is a countertop electric composter that turns food scraps into dirt in under 4 hours. Now I'm loving the composting. Plus, it's made cooking at home even more fun. Well, it's made it fun, period. It wasn't fun. Now it's a little fun. There's no food rotting in the garbage, smelling up the kitchen. Thanks to Lomi, you have to take out the trash far less frequently. You can turn your waste into nutrient-rich dirt that you can then feed to your plants, your lawn, or your garden. All your food scraps, your plant clippings, even those leftovers in the back of the fridge can go boom into the garden, helping grow more nutritious food right in your own backyard. Whether you want to stay making a positive environmental impact or you just want to grow a beautiful garden, Lomi is perfect. Head to lomi.com/MK, LOMI.com/MK. Use the promo code MK to get $50 off your order. That's $50 off when you head to LOMI.com/MK. Use the promo code MK at checkout for your discount. Turn your food waste into dirt with the press of a button, thanks to Lomi. Use the code MK to save $50. Lomi.com/MK. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.